Here in America's last frontier, the stage is set for the first face-to-face between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in 6 years. This morning, the Kremlin says that the two will share the stage together, holding a joint press conference after the summit. The White House has not yet confirmed any joint news conference. The meeting is designed as a step toward ending Russia's war against Ukraine, even as the Russian bombardment has intensified in recent days. Ahead of tomorrow's summit, NBC News has learned President Trump, in a call with European leaders, including Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky, said he's going into the meeting with the goal of securing a ceasefire. That's according to multiple U.S. and European officials. The president later delivering this stern warning if Putin does not agree to end the assault on Ukraine.
There will be very severe consequences.
President Trump did not specify what those consequences might be. The sources say the president also made clear he does not intend to discuss the possible carving up of Ukrainian territory with Putin. Welcome news to European leaders who would urge President Trump not to make any peace deal that changes Ukraine's borders without Ukraine in the room. Ukraine fears tomorrow's summit could be to Putin's advantage. President Zelensky said he told President Trump that Putin is bluffing, as the president sought to reassure world leaders about the meeting. This morning's Kremlin announcement of a joint press conference potentially raising concerns again after their last shared news conference in 2018, when President Trump was asked about U.S. intelligence conclusions that Putin interfered in U.S. elections.
President Putin, he just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
These days, the president appears a bit more skeptical of Putin's promises when asked whether he can convince Putin to stop targeting Ukrainian civilians.
I've had a lot of good conversations with him. Then I go home and I see that a rocket hit a nursing home or a rocket hit an apartment building and people are laying dead in the street. So I guess the answer to that is no.
Peter, Zelensky has said he needs to be part of any talks to agree to a deal. So what is the plan on behalf of the White House to include Ukraine in this dialogue going forward?
Yeah, Savannah, it's a good question. First of all, President Trump says that he will know quickly, perhaps he says within the first 2 minutes of their meeting, whether Vladimir Putin is serious about any peace deal. But specifically to your point about Ukraine's role, we know that President Zelensky is not going to be a part of tomorrow's meeting, which, by the way, is Putin's first trip to the U.S. in a decade. But President Trump is now already floating a possible follow-up meeting that could include Ukraine's leader, saying that tomorrow's meeting, if it goes okay, he would like to do another one with Zelensky there almost immediately. Savannah.
All right, Peter, I know you'll be watching. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.